Hi guys, it's Mr. Johnston. I am going to read the book that we read yesterday on Zoom. This is called All the Way to Havana. It was written by Margarita Engel and it was illustrated by Mark Curato. This book tells the story of a boy whose family takes their old 1950s era car from the countryside in Cuba all the way to the capital city of Havana, Cuba. Although this story is set in the present day, all of the cars that are featured are from the 1950s as a result of a trade situation between Cuba and the United States, making it impossible for new cars and new car parts to be shipped to Cuba from the United States. As we read this book, I'm going to pause and ask you to wonder about various things, including the boy and Cuba and what's going on in the story. I would also like you to pay attention to the way that the boy and his father work together to fix problems, and also to think about the amount of pride the boy takes in the car that his family has. Alright, All the Way to Havana by Margarita Engel, illustrated by Mark Curato. And here you see all these different cars, right? These are the kinds of cars that are still on the streets in Cuba today, having been fixed many, many times. We have a gift and we have a cake, and today we are going to drive all the way to the big city. The rattling parts that have been fixed with twist here, a tightening there, move this, hold that, until finally, after discouraging minutes that feel like endless hours, Cara Cara once again begins to sound like a chattering hen. I'm going to pause here, and I'm just curious if you are you wondering about this story right now? What are you wondering about this story right now? I am curious about how many times they have fixed this car and where they get all of their ideas and ways to use them. They don't get actual car parts. That's what I'm wondering. Take a minute and think about what you're wondering. Reading. The road is bumpy and our noisy car ends up so crowded with the friendly neighbors who need a ride that I feel like we're traveling in a barrel of elbows and knees. But we have a gift and we have a cake. And we're driving to my new baby cousin's 0-year birthday. And we glide, taka taka taka. And we zoom, zoom, zoom. Beside farms, forests, beaches, and forts. Until toward the curved road by the seawall. Here's the seawall here. It's this wall where you can sit and look at the ocean as they approach the capital city of Havana. By the seawall, where Mama points out noisy cars of every color, yellow, pink, purple, green, orange, and even a bright red car with huge fins like a shark lurking. I'm glad that Cara Cara is peacefully blue, like the clear sky above the wide sea beyond. Now this picture makes me just wonder all kinds of things about the kinds of cars in Cuba and how they've kept them together. I'm wondering at this point, let me get my whiteboard, what you guys are wondering. What do you wonder about the cars in Cuba? In specific, what are you wondering about cars in Cuba? As I see this, How do they keep the paint so fresh? It looks so shiny and sparkly and new, but these cars are more than 60 years old. That's what I'm wondering. What questions do you have about cars in the country of Cuba, which is an island just off of the southern tip of Florida in the southeastern United States? Reading. I'm glad that Caracara is peacefully blue, like the clear sky above and the wide sea beyond. Some of the noisy old cars around us have torn seats and shattered windows and cracked mirrors. Many of the cars roar, growl, whine, or put, put, put. But most just honk, honk, honk. They glide, bumpity bump, on the potholed city streets. Where people lean over crumbling balconies as laundry dances and a sea breeze sings. A sea breeze just means wind off the ocean. When we finally reach Tia's house, Tia is aunt in Spanish, I hug abuelo. Abuelo is grandpa in Spanish. And everyone smiles as we admire the funny baby boy who is too little to know how to open a gift, or play with the box and the ribbon, or build a teetering mango and pineapple tower. Pineapple tower, box and ribbon, and here's the little baby they came to see. Little baby cousin. After lunch, cake and music, and a happy birthday fiesta, I need a quiet siesta. That means nap and sleep. When I wake up, I discover that it's already time to start driving home. So we zoom and bump all the way back to our little village, where we will soon have a chance to kata kata, taka taka, pio pio, cluck. I apologize, that was my son. Really loud. Kara kara, taka taka, pio pio, cluck, and sleep. The next morning, we have to work under the hood again. Never giving up, never losing hope. I'm eager to help Papa guess which tool is best. When he asked me which city trip car I liked the most, the answer is easy. Our car. This noisy blue one with its ragged seats and cloudy windows, because Caracara already belonged to when Abuelo, my old grandfather, celebrated his 0-year birthday. Someday, Abuelo's car will be yours, Papa promises, making me feel as proud and powerful as the bold eagle that makes Cara's sky blue hood look so brave. Alright, that's the end of the story, but I did want to take a minute and read the author and illustrator's notes about this story to just share with you, and then I'll have one more question for you to think about, and we'll end the video. The author's notes from Margarita Engel says, situation, that means kind of a tricky disagreement between the leaders of the United States and Cuba. Many American cars on the island of Cuba are from before 1959, more than 60 years old. And so that parts under the hood have been replaced many times, often inventions, meaning just whatever they could find. Despite more than half a century of poverty and hardship, people remain so creative that they managed to keep machines of all sorts running long past the age when people would discard them. This simple poem, the story that she wrote, about the island's noisy old cars is intended as an expression of admiration for the everyday ingenuity, meaning intelligence and problem solving, of people everywhere who have to struggle, persevere, create, and invent on a daily basis, never losing. Undoubtedly, a boy like the one in this story would dream of modern cars and space-age inventions, along with plans to keep his family's antique car running smoothly. So that was from the author. Here's a little note from the illustrator, and if you'll notice here, there's a picture of a real-life car that I think this story is based on. We're going to read and find out. I had the great fortune to visit Cuba to research this book. My friend and fellow artist, Eric Ledesma, came with me to act as a translator. We stayed with Margarita's cousin, Julio and Isabel, at their casa, the Cuban equivalent of a bed and breakfast. It's like a little hotel. In the heart of Havana, we hired a driver named who picked us up in a 1954 Chevy 210 series, also known as the Chevy Del Rey. No pun intended. The car in his wife Mari Belis's family for more than 30 years. Ray and Mari Belis drove Eric and me across the beautiful Cuban countryside and back to Havana. I wanted to experience the trip that the family in this book makes. I created the illustrations by combining pencil drawings. So he just goes on to talk about how he made the illustrations. And then down here he says, Ray and Mari Bellis now call their 54 Chevy Cara Cara. So she is real. For me, she has come to represent everything that I love about Cuba. Classic beauty, perseverance, and family loyalty. All right. So as we wrap up that story, I have one last question. As we focus on wondering. What are you still wondering about Cuba or this story? As you think about the cars and the story we heard and the things we've learned about Cuba, what questions do you still have? All right. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the read aloud. Feel free to run it back and listen to it again if you need to. And always, keep reading, keep wondering, stay healthy, stay safe, wash your hands.